Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about one of these symptoms of ADHD. So just a brief overview of what the symptoms are is that the two kind of major symptoms that professionals will look for to diagnose ADHD in anyone is hyperactivity and inattentiveness. And so today I'm going to focus on hyperactivity. Okay? Hyperactivity as a symptom in adults with ADHD often kind of looks and is experienced more like an inner restlessness. So, what is an inner restlessness? An inner restlessness is kind of like this feeling of feeling constantly antsy, almost like there's like an inner kind of motor or engine that just wants to keep you moving or doing something, doing anything really, ideally something that you're interested in. So, what becomes problematic, though, or what can be difficult with someone with ADHD and this experience of hyperactivity, or again, in adults, more likely to be kind of an inner restlessness, is their mind is going in all different places all at once. Right? They're trying to do something that they feel is really important, or that they need to do. They're trying to get their work done. They're trying to sort of pay attention to their child's homework and help them through that. They're trying to clean. They're trying to accomplish something that requires sustained effort. But this is hard. And one of the main reasons that this is hard is because a part of our brain called the default mode network that everyone has, um, but in people with ADHD, the default mode network is overactive. So, sort of a quick comparison here. The default mode network is responsible for daydreaming. Okay, it's the part of our mind that, when we're looking out the window, on a nice drive or something, we're kind of just, we're in our own mind. We're not really fully present. We're kind of thinking about the day's activities, maybe thinking, literally dreaming about something. Our mind is elsewhere. Right? To focus a sustained attention on something, we need our task positive network to be involved. So what happens in neurotypicals is that, let's say we're daydreaming, or you're in class, or you're at work, you're daydreaming, and then, okay, you decide there's something that you need to do. Your brain, and in a neurotypical's brain, switches to that task positive network. And the default mode network then quiets down. Right? There's this smooth transitioning between daydreaming and kind of an inner world, inner restlessness kind of thing, to focusing on what they need to focus on. With ADHD, though, it's like there's a glitchy switch. So even if there's something that you need to focus on, which you're trying to activate the task positive network, let's say finishing an assignment or a project at work, the default mode network still stays active. So someone with ADHD, in this case, would be trying to focus on something. Meanwhile, their default mode network is still active. So they're still having all these random thoughts, these unrelated thoughts. Right? It could be anything else. And essentially, if the thing that they're trying to focus on is not innately attractive or stimulating or interesting to them, like a lot of administrative things are, right? Administrative things, monotonous tasks, maybe it's reading a long page, maybe it's looking at something with a lot of jargon, whatever it is that isn't interesting to this individual with ADHD, then that means their default mode network is going to be firing. It's going to be active. It's going to be looking for something else that is more stimulating. And that is partly responsible for the feeling of boredom that individuals with ADHD constantly feel because they're trying to focus on something, but they feel bored, which basically means that their default mode network is active. Right? That there's that inner sense that they're not fully interested and stimulated, and so their mind, the default mode network, is looking for something else to focus on. And that can be frustrating because it's like you have this internal conflict within you, right? There's this internal conflict between the default mode networks, daydreaming, this sort of constant scanning and searching for something interesting to do, versus your own acknowledgement that I got to do this assignment. I need to do this work right now. So now there's this, it's a conflict, it's a divide, right, between these two parts of the brain, essentially. And then you, the individual with ADHD, who is aware of all this all at the same time, who likely is already a little bit, maybe even overstimulated in terms of different thoughts or fantasies or daydreams that they don't necessarily, that they know they don't want to be thinking about or they shouldn't be thinking about, and then the things that they know they should be doing, like work. So it creates this whole overwhelming situation, and it can be frustrating. It can be tiring. It can be overwhelming. It's like you're working on overdrive a lot of the time. Uh, and so that's sort of where this inner restlessness and the default mode network and the task positive network all kind of intersect in the symptoms of hyperactivity in adults with ADHD. And so just a little bit more about the default mode network to give you some examples. Because it's constantly sort of on, it's very hard to completely turn off unless, you find something that you're really interested in. And then you maybe enter that hyper focus, which is a real strong activation of that task positive network with no default mode network, right? You start to lose awareness of your surroundings because you're so focused on that, right? So again, there's this glitchy switch between these two different networks. But when the default mode network is on, it's kind of like, and you're trying to focus on something, it's kind of like the background music never turns off. And we can call this default mode interference. It's interfering with your ability to focus on needed tasks. Also, what you might notice it as is spacing out. So maybe your partner has seen you, or maybe you've just noticed in yourself that sometimes you'll just kind of space out and you kind of look off into the distance. You look zoned out. Maybe that happens during conversations, right? That is also the default mode network because it's like your brain is sort of, again, daydreaming, looking for other things, processing information, kind of reflecting while you're in the middle of doing something. It can also be responsible for the need to reread pages, right? Because again, you're trying to focus on something, but your mind is drifting away. The default mode network is essentially responsible for these minds being pulled away, going off into a different realm of thought or reality within your own self. And so this again makes it overwhelming to do when, especially if you're sort of doing tasks that are maybe seem boring for you. Your brain seeking more stimulating activity. Okay. So what else can happen is that then the resultant sort of there's like a loop, a cycle that happens. It's the boredom, frustration, habit loop. Okay, and this creates a real issue on a regular basis for those with ADHD. And so what happens is that the default mode network makes tasks seem boring, right? This leads to discomfort. When the brain feels discomfort, it wants to escape. So this leads to then a habit loop of there's a cue, right? There's a feeling of internal restlessness or boredom. And that leads to a craving, a desire to escape the feeling and find more stimulation. And then our response to that is maybe we pick up our phone, right? We start playing a game, we open a new tab, we grab a snack. We're rewarded for that. We get a dopamine hit. This is the temporary relief from that boredom. But the problem is that the consequence is that this loop becomes a well ingrained habit for us. And so we keep repeating it, right? But this repeated habit over time leads to us not getting our work done. Right? It leads us to not fulfilling our duties, to following through on promises we've made for others. This all leads to a lot of the kind of real deeper struggles that those with ADHD experience in their regular day life. And so in a future video, I'll try and do it soon, but in a future video, we're going to talk about more maybe some strategies to address some of these struggles and to develop healthier habits, okay? And sort of using the understanding, which is always first and most important, is recognizing and understanding what is happening internally for you so you can label it. You start to notice yourself space out. That's the default mode network. It's looking for something more interesting. It's just that part of the brain that's looking for something more interesting. You know what you need to do. And so in a future video, we'll talk about some ways to kind of manage that internal conflict and find some strategies to help you develop better habits that ultimately help you, your relationships, your working life, and overall your life